Good morning, and welcome to Vigilant Broadcasting. The station opportunity presents Underneath the Hat with your host, author Sherri Simmons, as she discusses topics to help us all take care of ourselves underneath the hat.
Good morning. My name is Sherri Simmons, and this is Underneath the Hat, an affiliate of Vigilant Broadcasting and the Talk Radio and TV Network, LLP. And today's topic, we're going to dive a little bit into my business today. But I soon found out that I was not the only person that was suffering from this, and this is my journey with infertility. So if you want to tune in and hear about it, you can find us on the Facebook page, Talk Radio TV Network, LLP, or you can call in if you have questions or want to share your story as well at 319-527-2634. So I know some of you have heard of the word infertility or have had someone in your life that has dealt with it. And so I decided that I wanted to share my story with you all so that we can have a better understanding of what it is. Because so often we don't know what things are, and so we make comments or say things that can be taken the wrong way. And so I wanted to make sure that we were aware of it so that some of the unnecessary suggestions and comments that I have heard over the years from people would cease. Because now that people will have a better understanding of it, they'll be able to deal with it better. So, first thing, what is infertility? The dictionary says that it is the inability to conceive children or young. And I found out that I was infertile later on in my life, but I did find out that there was an issue that I was having. And my issue originally started with fibroids. And I know some of you may be looking at the picture now and are wondering, oh my God, what is that? Those are what you call fibroids. And they're really benign tumors, meaning they're not cancerous, and they grow inside of a woman's body. And they also feed off of blood. So because of our menstrual cycles, that is why women get the fibroids instead of men. So I originally found out that I had fibroids in 2010. I had gone to my gynecologist for my annual pap smear, and they noticed that I had these hard formations inside of my stomach. And I always wondered why everything else was smaller on me except my abdominal area, my stomach area. I always had this pooch, and I really couldn't understand why. And so the doctor told me that I had fibroids. Now, during this time in 2010, I was married for 5 years, and we were trying to conceive, but nothing was happening. And so when the doctor told me that I had fibroids, I was actually excited because now I know what the problem is. Let's get it fixed. And we had the surgery December 1st, 2010. I had a myomectomy, which is where they cut me on my stomach like a C-section. So they had to remove the fibroids that way. Now, once you have a myomectomy, your chances of having a vaginal birth are basically slim to none. So I knew going in for this myomectomy that once I became pregnant, my only option was to have a C-section or a cesarean because they had already cut. So December 1st, 2010, I checked into Mercy Hospital, and I had my surgery. I was excited because it was an eviction party. I called it an eviction party. Let's get rid of fibroids. I'm ready to have kids. This is what's stopping us. let's go ahead and do it. Had the first operation, they removed about 6 fibroids, similar to the ones that you see there on the screen. But the doctor came to me and she said that there was one fibroid that was so close to my uterus that she did not want to take the chance of touching it and then causing me to have a hysterectomy. Now, hysterectomy means that they remove your uterus, which is basically preventing me from having children. So once your uterus is gone, once you have a hysterectomy, women are no longer able to produce children. And because my doctor knew that I wanted to have children, she left that fibroid in there. But she said she had gotten rid of all of the other ones. So good. I'm happy. All right. The surgery was about 4 or 5 hours long, but the recovery time was 6 to 8 weeks. So because it was considered a C-section, I had to be out for 8 weeks. I took all my 8 weeks. And I was like, okay, my ex-husband and I, we started trying to have children again. Still nothing. So in the midst of me having the surgery, having the fibroids removed, and still not being able to conceive, I found out that he had been having an affair. Now, prior to that, I had gone to an infertility clinic or infertility specialist. Now, they have several of those available to women who, after having fibroids removed, they're just not able to conceive. And so going to the infertility specialist allowed for them to dig deeper into my situation, my uterus, to see exactly what was going on, what was the holdup. And so I went to one in 2011, and they did all of these tests. They did the fallopian tube test, where they put dye inside of your tubes to make sure that nothing is blocking your tubes. They did the water ultrasound, where I had to drink all of this water and couldn't use the restroom until they did the ultrasound, because all the fluid would, I guess, allow everything to be able to be seen better. And so they did all of the tests. Everything came back fine on my end, but as part of the infertility experience, when you go to an infertility specialist, it's not only you that they test. They also test the man. And my ex-husband was very old school, and so he wasn't about having anybody asking him to give a sample. He either had to go into the place to give a sample, a semen sample, so they can test it, or we had to bring it to them. So I was like, okay. Now, at this time, we already weren't at the best of places. As far as our relationship, things were starting to go downhill during this time. But I, being naive, figured, okay, if I have a baby, then that'll change everything. So let me get these fibroids out and let me go to this infertility place to find out what's wrong. And when he didn't come with me, I was on this journey by myself. I went to all of the appointments, all of the testing by myself. And when I finally came home, they gave me a plastic cup. And they said, we need his sample. We now see that there's nothing wrong with you. The fibroids are gone. Everything is clear. Your uterus is clear. You're able to hold the baby. Your fallopian tubes are not blocked. Everything is good. We just need a sample so we can see if it's an issue with your husband. I bring the cup home, and long story short, he threw the cup out directly into the garbage can. So all of my hopes and dreams of having children with him were basically thrown away. Months later is when I found out that there were infidelity issues on his part, and we ended up separating. But I would say it was a blessing in those fibroids, because if I had never found out I had them, had never had that surgery, had never gone to the IVF clinic, I would have had a child with someone who was not worthy of me having children with. So I'm actually kind of glad that I had the experience of the fibroids, because the fibroids saved me from ever having to deal with him again. So thank God for that. So after we separated and I moved out, the fibroids came back. So I had to have another surgery. And on October 29th, 2013, I had my second myoectomy. This time I was at a different hospital with a different doctor, Dr. Chapman, who's no longer with us. And he decided that he was going to go around the incision that my doctor had already gone around. So that way I wouldn't have multiple incisions. I wouldn't look like Frankenstein on my stomach, thank God. So he went around my same incision from my first surgery. So when he went in, he was able to get the biggest fibroid out that was close to my uterus and keep my uterus intact. And he was able to get all of the fibroids that had grown back. So, but at this point, I'm single or at least separated. No chance I'm trying to have children with this man because we were talking about divorce. And so at least I was healthy. But I had to have another surgery to get the fibroids out, and they removed about the same amount of fibroids as you see on the screen. So now I've had about 12 fibroids removed in the last 3 years. From 2010 to 2013, I've had 12 fibroids removed. So now I know what the problem is. We solved the problem. Okay. So I meet my husband that I have now, and we're ready and thinking and talking about having children. Now, I made sure that I was very honest with him. I didn't want to go into a situation where he didn't know what he was up against. We were both divorced. We were both willing to try this again. He already had a daughter, so I assumed nothing was wrong with him. So I went through the whole process again of getting my body ready to make sure that nothing else came up, because by now I've already had 12 fibroids removed. The fibroids keep coming back. So I did my annual test and found out, they're back again. So this time we decided to, instead of having the surgery, because it's so extensive, it's 8 weeks out of healing, I decided to go through the IVF cycle, or go to an infertility clinic to talk to them to see if everything was still okay. This time, God sent me as a man that was supportive. He understood that I wanted to have children, and he was willing to do everything that he could to make sure that I was able to be a mom. Now, prior to me meeting him, I was 23 when I got married the first time. And it amazes me the things that people say. So they thought we were too young to get married. But then once we get married, they're like, okay, well, when you having kids? And then we're like, well, we're trying. Well, I think we just want to travel. So I've traveled all over the world. I've had multiple passports. We've done everything that they would expect us to do, but then everybody's asking, well, when are you having a baby? When's the baby coming? What's taking you so long? What's wrong with y'all? Not knowing the things that we were actually dealing with in private. And so this is part of the reason why I wanted to do this show today, because we have this idea of how things should be based on what we've experienced. We heard the song, first comes love, first comes marriage, then comes baby and a baby carriage. But we don't really think about, because of our personal experiences, that there may be people who can't have children or who don't do it the natural way, with my air quotes. So we tend to say very insensitive things that can ultimately cause people to shy away from certain things. And that's exactly what happened to me. In between the two surgeries that I had, it seemed to be the time when everybody was having children. Everybody wanted me to be a godmother. Everybody wanted to invite me to baby showers. And I had gotten to the point where I became depressed. I would cry whenever I would go into a baby section at a Walmart or Babies R Us. I would avoid that part of the store altogether because I felt like it was something wrong with me, especially after having the second surgery. And the fibroids kept coming back. So I started to feel as though it was something wrong with me. And to have people always asking you, well, when is the baby coming? What's taking you all so long? It really does something to a woman, especially when everyone else around you is having children. And they're not even in the same lifestyle as you, barely can take care of the children, but it makes you feel a certain type of way when everyone else is doing it but you. So you start to feel like, what is wrong with me? So the low self-esteem kicks in, and the anxiety kicks in, and the frustration kicks in, and you just start to wonder, why is this happening to me? Why can't I have children? Why am I having all these fibroids? Why is it people who can barely take care of their kids, the ones they have, keep popping out babies? I used to say that they were popping them out like Pez dispensers, for those old enough to know what a Pez dispenser is. I just didn't understand it. And then for me to have gone through the first part of the infertility with a husband, and then now here I am without one, and still having to deal with these fibroids, I just could not wrap my mind around why this was happening. And so when I met my second husband, Vince, I was completely honest with him, because I had come out of a relationship where honesty was not at the top of the list as far as both of us being in a relationship and both of us being open and honest about what we wanted. So I made sure that he knew what he was getting into before we got any farther than we already were. I didn't want him to get his hopes up high, even though he had a daughter, and then get his hopes up about having a child, and I'm not able to give him one. And having already had 2 myomectomies to remove fibroids, even though my visit to the infertility specialist said that everything was great, things can change over time. Your body changes. I went from not having fibroids to having them again. So I wasn't oblivious to the fact that something else could happen, something else could change. And I wanted to be open and honest with him to make sure he knew what it was that he was getting into. And so when I told him where my body was and what was going on with it, he said, whatever we have to do. Whatever we have to do, that's what we'll do. And so we decided that we were both going to go to another IVF facility. Actually, it was the same one, Chicago IVF in Orland Park. And he was all on board for making sure that anything that I needed to do, anything he needed to do, anything that would make me comfortable and happy so that we could have the child that we both wanted, he was willing to do. And so when we come back from our break, I will explain to you what happened at our first infertility visit after all of the other surgeries I had had. I'll let you know what was next in our journey of infertility. So this is Underneath the Hat, and I am your host, Sherri Simmons, and we'll be back right after this break.
Welcome back to Underneath the Hat with your host, author Sherri Simmons.
Hello. Welcome back to Underneath the Hat, an affiliate of Vigilant Broadcasting and the Talk Radio and TV Network, LLP. My name is Sherri Simmons, your host. If you're tuning in on Facebook, you can join us at Talk Radio TV Network, LLP, or you can call in and discuss, ask a question, share your story at 319-527-2634. So I have been discussing my journey with infertility. And infertility is the inability to conceive children or young. And so when we left off, I was sharing that I had had 2 myomectomies, which is the removal of the fibroid. And that was during my time with my first husband. And now I have started a new relationship with my current husband. And I shared that I was being very honest with him and upfront because I didn't want him to come into the relationship of thinking one thing and of me being able to give him a child, and it never happened. So in October 2014, October 27th, I actually had a laparoscopy, which is where they go inside to remove, again, more fibroids. So they ended up removing 6 more fibroids. 6 seems to be my lucky number with these things. So now this was an outpatient, so I didn't have to be cut, and it was crazy because I actually went in on that Friday and got on a plane to go to Vegas to celebrate my best friend's birthday the following day. So I went drugged up trying to get rid of these fibroids because fibroids cause a lot of pain. For those women out there who suffer from them, and these women out here, you actually have no idea if you don't have them or if you're a man, that we go through a lot with these fibroids. They cause heavy menstrual cycles. They cause bloating around our stomach area. They cause cramping and pain. And so those of us that have them, we go through a lot. And because mine was so big, you can see in one of the pictures from my last surgery that one is the size of a grapefruit. Those sit on your bladder. And so if you have a significant other that has to urinate a lot, it's probably because she has fibroids and it sits on her bladder. So those of us that are suffering from these, we actually go through a lot. And some of them are manageable. You have those people who have very small ones, like the smallest one I had on the picture. And then you have some who have multiple sizes, like the ones that I had. So October 27, 2014, I had a laparoscopy, which was an outpatient procedure. But by now, from December 2010 to October 2014, I've had about 18 fibroids removed so far. And so now I'm in this relationship with my second husband, Vince, and I need to have another one. Because I have a high tolerance for pain, so for me to go to the doctor is serious. Like, I can't walk, I can't move, I can't function. And so I ended up going back again, having another surgery, and this time they were able to remove 5 more fibroids. And so this one was, it's called a colposcopy. And what they did was they had to do a close-up look at my cervix, which was part of the IVF process, just to see if it's really a cervical cancer test. So they just wanted to make sure that everything was okay, because Vince and I decided that we wanted to go through the IVF cycle. So some of you may ask, well, what is IVF? IVF is in vitro fertilization. So when we finally met up and went to the fertility specialist together, I did all of the same tests I did the first time. Vince gave his sample. It was funny because Vince, the first time Vince did his sample, he went in and they give you, he didn't want to go in. So I had to literally bring the sample from home. Now, in order for the sample to be viable, you have to keep it warm. So we live in Chicago, and I had to drive 45 minutes to Orland Park. After he gave his sample at home, I had to put it inside of my chest in order to keep it warm. So I'm driving in my car for 45 minutes with my husband's sample. This is just how serious we are about this situation. So we went through the process. Everything checked out on his part. It was time for me to do all my tests. I did the tube. They tested my fallopian tubes. And this time they found out one of them was blocked. The right tube was blocked. Then they did the uterine test to see if I would be able to hold the child. Yes, I would be able to hold the child, but my uterus was stretched. So it was bigger than it was double the size that it should have been. And then I still had more fibroids had grown. So they were like, okay, we're going to try, here's some options. So you have IUI, which is where they take the sample, the semen, and they find a path around the fibroids, and they shoot the sample, the semen, directly to the uterus or to the egg. We could have done that. But they were like, the chances of that, because of the fibroids that you have, I call my uterus a dysfunctional pinball machine, because only one side works. Only my left side works. Everything else, everything on the right is out of order. So it's like doing a pinball, trying to get pregnant on a pinball machine with only one side working. That's how my internal situation looks. So they said the IUI of taking the sperm and directly putting it in wouldn't work because there's too many paths they would have to go through. So they said that the chances of us getting pregnant naturally, 2%, because of all of the fibroids. Trying to maneuver the sperm around all of these different obstacles wasn't working. Now, mind you, by this time, I am 33. So for 10 years, I've been trying to have children and haven't been successful. So they said, well, the only option for you is IVF. So I did we did start the process for IVF, which is in vitro fertilization. Here is how in vitro fertilization works, and I'm glad this picture is up. So with in vitro fertilization, if you know anyone who's gone through this, they have to give themselves medicine. You have to prepare your eggs in order to be taken out of your body. And then in a lab, they take the man's semen and the egg, and they make an embryo outside of the body. And then once they make an embryo, they take the embryo and implant it back into the uterus. So everything is done outside the body because it's not able to be done inside. Well, in order to prepare myself to do this, they have these different cohorts where they have different women on different monthly cycles and schedules within the clinic so that they can do multiple IVF cycles within a certain each month. So our first cycle was in October. So we started in September of preparing my eggs to be taken out. So the process goes like this. I had to go in, I had to get an ultrasound, I had to get blood work. So every morning, every other day for 2 weeks, I would get up in the morning before going to work, I would get blood drawn, and I would get an ultrasound. The ultrasound is to check to make sure that I'm producing eggs. Then I would have to give myself shots, which is the medicine that you see there. Now, this is only part of the medicine. Now, thank God for insurance, because this is about $13,000 worth of medicine on my counter, but I only pay like $32 for it. Thank you, Blue Cross Blue Shield. So you see boxes, the endometrium, you see Menopur, you see the Sharps container, you see the blue box, which is a shot. You see the big box in the corner that says injection. Those boxes and those plastic bags in the middle are actually vials of medication, and also the needles. So these are all of the things that I had to take leading up to the egg retrieval. So depending on what my first ultrasound and blood work said depends on how much I have to take. So with my first IVF cycle, I had to do 2 shots in the morning, 2 shots at night. And you have to take them at the exact same time. So I believe my first cycle was by 9 o'clock in the morning and by 8 o'clock at night. And so I had to mix the medicine myself. I had to take a vial of white powder and then a vial of clear, and I had to mix them up together, transport the clear into the white, then that made it clear, and then I had to transport that into a needle, and I had to stick myself into my stomach twice a day, in the morning, twice at night. This is helping to stimulate my eggs, because they need them to come out sooner than they normally would on their own or naturally, which is why we have menstrual cycles. So they needed the eggs to plump up basically faster and produce more faster. So at this time I was 33, 32, and at my age I should be producing at least 15, 20 eggs. They were only able to see 8. So the doctor informed me that I am perimenopausal, which means that I'm preparing for menopause early. So when you're preparing for menopause, the purpose of menopause is for you to no longer have a menstrual cycle. So I'm going through that journey, that situation early, which means my number of eggs is being cut in half the older that I get. So I had that to deal with, plus the blocked fallopian tube, plus the fibroids that were growing back and some that were still there that they didn't get. So I have all these things battling against me. And so I've been giving myself the shots, getting up every other morning, going to get blood work and an ultrasound, and they were able to find 8 eggs. Okay, good. So 3 weeks after I've done all these shots, it's time for the egg retrieval. So with the egg retrieval, they sedate you. So it's a mild surgery. And so my husband and I had to go to this place. I believe it was in Naperville. So we had to drive all the way out to Naperville, and he had to come as well because I would be under anesthesia. Someone would have to drive me. And also he has to give a sample because if they're able to retrieve eggs, they automatically start the IVF process of taking my egg, putting it with his sperm, and within 3 days I would come back and they will put the eggs back in. So he has to be there giving a sample as well. So we get there. I'm excited. It's the first IVF cycle. I'm like, okay, good. They got some eggs, not as many as they could have been, but we're going to go with that. It don't take but one to work. Go in optimistic. I come in. They put me in my gown. They got me all comfy. They put the IV in. They have me sign the papers, tell us what's next, roll me back there, put me under. I come back out. The doctor comes and says, we'll call you later. Okay. So I asked him, so what happened with you? He was like, well, they took me in a room and showed me these videos. We had to choose from these videos, and I had to give my sample. I'm like, okay. So we get to the house, and I'm resting because, again, they've been poking and prodding in my internal situation. So I'm in pain. The anesthesia's wearing off. I get a phone call. Phone call says they were not able to retrieve any eggs because of the fibroids. So because the fibroids were in the way, they weren't able to get to the egg. Okay. So my next option is to get the fibroids removed again. So we get the fibroids removed. I had another myectomy, and it was in May of 2018. So that is the picture that you all have seen in this episode. Those were the actual fibroids that I had my Dr. Adahar take out. He took them out, and I asked him to take a picture. This is the first time I've actually seen what my fibroids look like, because I asked him, please take a picture of what they look like, because now this is what, 26 fibroids that have been taken out between 2010 to 2018. So I wanted to see what they look like, what was going on inside me, what was all this fuss about. And so he took that picture, and those were the fibroids he was able to remove. And my uterus is still there. But there was a problem during my surgery. He had to call his brother in, who's also a doctor, because there was so much scar tissue inside of my abdomen. Now, normally when I have my fibroid surgery, I get a little excited, I'll admit, because I lose 20, 30 pounds. Those fibroids take up a lot of space. And so I dropped down in size in my abdomen, but this time I didn't. And the doctor explained to me he had to call his brother in to remove scar tissue. So scar tissue is like gum, like glue. And so they form around different wounds and cuts that you have inside of your body. So from all of the surgeries that I've had prior to this one in May of 2018, it left a lot of scar tissue. Scar tissue grew around like a scab. Like when we cut ourselves on the outside, the scab grows out on the outside. Well, when you get cut inside, the scar tissue grows around to help with the healing. But because of all the fibroids, I've had 26 fibroids all being cut from different angles, it forms scar tissue. And because of the scar tissue, my uterus is attached to my abdominal wall. So basically my uterus is glued to my abdominal wall, which has stretched it out to make me look like I'm 5 to 6 months pregnant. So, and the only way for me to bring down that size is for me to have a hysterectomy, which means I can't have children. So they were able to get rid of as much scar tissue as they were able to, but my uterus is now stretched. So normally it's supposed to be 5 centimeters. Mine is 10. So it's double the size it's supposed to be. In addition to there still being fibroids in there, his thing was he did not want to take out more than 5, but he took out 6. And so there was still some left in there. So I still have fibroids in there. But now my uterus has stretched. So I'm like, oh, Lord, okay. So we've gotten the myomectomy. I'm like, okay, let's try the IVF cycle again. So we tried the IVF cycle. We did the myomectomy in May. I did another egg retrieval, which means all that medicine that just popped up on the screen, I have to take it all over again. I have to give myself the shots. I have to go back and forth every other day to the office to have blood work done and ultrasounds. But this time when they were checking my eggs, instead of them finding 8 eggs, they found 12. I was excited. More eggs, better the chances. So when we come back from break, I will tell you what happened once we went back for the egg retrieval. This is Underneath the Hat. I'm your host, Sherri Simmons, and we'll be back after this break.
Welcome back to Underneath the Hat with your host, Arthur Sherri Simmons.
Hello, this is Underneath the Hat, an affiliate of Vigilant Broadcasting and the Talk Radio and TV Network, LLP. I am your host, Sherri Simmons, and our topic today has been infertility. So for those that have been tuning in, I am speaking about my journey through infertility. So infertility is the inability to conceive children or young, and I've shared with you all the tireless journey that I've had of trying to conceive children, from the multiple surgeries to remove my fibroids, which are benign tumors, and they grow inside of your body and they feed off blood. I've actually had 26 removed from December 1st, 2010 to May 2018, but they consistently grow back. And because of the fibroids being there, I've had to take the journey of going to see an infertility specialist, which have begun to help me with trying to get pregnant in a different route. And so that route is called IVF, or in vitro fertilization, where they take the eggs from me and my husband's sperm, and they make the baby embryo outside of the body and then put the egg back in. So I just shared how I had my first cycle in October 2017. They were able to see 8 eggs in the ultrasound, but when we went for the egg retrieval, they weren't able to get any of those eggs. So because of the fibroids still being there. So my husband and I decided to do a myomectomy, which is another surgery to remove the fibroids. And there's actually a picture that'll come up of the fibroids and what they look like. These are the actual fibroids that my doctor removed from me in May of 2018. And once those were removed, we had to wait a couple of months to start the second cycle. Now, with the second cycle, I had to go through the same thing I went through with the first, which is giving myself shots. This time, I had to do 3 shots in the morning, 2 shots at night. So I'll never forget, I had a party to go to, and the party would go past my 8 o'clock time to give my shots. And I was actually in the bathroom, ladies' bathroom at 8 o'clock, giving myself shots in the bathroom stall. And this was the time that my family actually got to see me do this. They had heard about the things that I had to do, but no one had ever witnessed it. And my grandmother happened to be here visiting, and I was sitting at the table because my dining room table became Grand Central Station for IVF. So all of my medicine was laid out. I knew exactly where everything was. And she walked in while I was giving myself the shot, and she almost passed out because she just couldn't understand why you're doing this to yourself. So for the second cycle, we started that in October 2018. So 6 months after the myomectomy. And my doctor was adamant about us not rushing. He wanted my body to heal. And so we had to wait at least 6 months. So as soon as he gave the go, I was ready. We did the second cycle. This time, instead of finding 8 eggs in my ultrasound, during my ultrasound, they found 12. So I'm like, okay, good. So I'm able to produce more eggs, better the chance. Again, we go back to the facility in Naperville to have the egg retrieval. They give me my IV. I go in. My husband's there so he can give his sample and also drive me home because I'm going under a light anesthesia. I go in. I come back out. I see his face as soon as I wake up, and I know, oh, my God, it didn't go. So the doctor comes out and says we were not able to retrieve any of the 12 eggs. Why? Because of the fibroid. So both of us are crushed because this is the second cycle. Like, we did the myomectomy. We did what you asked us to do. What is going on? And so since October 2018, here it is, April of 2019, I haven't really even discussed having another cycle. My doctor, Adahar, the one who did my last surgery, he suggested a doctor, another infertility specialist for me to go to. And I'm just like, I don't know if I want to go through this again because it's just so much on your body as a woman. I've lost hair going through my the IVF cycle, gain weight. I have been moody, and if you ask my husband, it's something. Like, he has to hide in the basement when I'm taking these shots because you become hormonal, because you're rushing the process. Imagine how your significant other acts during her menstrual. Men already know when it's time because of the way we act. So do that times 10, because now I'm taking shots to move everything faster. So he had to hide in the basement. And so between the hormones and the loss of hair from the medicine, and then to go through it and nothing to happen, so we had another consultation just to see what our choices and options were if we chose not to do IVF. And my doctor was really saying after 2 cycles and not being able to retrieve eggs and the way that your internal situation is set up, he suggested not even going through IVF again. So his options were for us to either get a surrogate, which means someone else would carry our baby for us. But my thing was, if I can't get eggs out of my uterus for me to carry, how am I going to get it for someone else? So then he suggested an embryo donation, where we would have someone donate their embryos, and they would fertilize it with my husband's egg, and then I could carry it. And I was not in the mood to carry my stepchild, so that was a no. And then he also talked about basically like a form of adoption, but it would be someone else's egg, someone else's sperm, and I would carry it. So I would be carrying my adoptive child. Now, I was more lenient towards that, because that way there was no personal connection or biological connection to either one of us if we decide to go that route. But I've just been at the point now since the last egg retrieval in October to where I just don't want to even think about anything. People were saying, well, what about adoption? I wouldn't mind doing adoption, but I'm just afraid of what type of child might come in this house, and I am not opposed to sending the child back, because I am not going to be having anyone come in and mess up the peace and the tranquility in this house. And plus, being a teacher, I see some children, and it'd be just my luck. I end up with one of those. So that has been a fear of mine, but in the process of doing all this, I've started to write a new book and actually finished recording it. I love to record my book and then write out the manuscript. So the name of it is actually It's That Size for a Reason, which talks about the size of my uterus and the things that I've gone through, and it talks about my journey with infertility. So one lesson that I learned about writing this book is that so often I had my mind set on me birthing a child, but God actually showed me that I had birthed other things spiritually. So it wasn't about a physical birth, but it was more so about a spiritual birth for me. The fact that I've written a book and I've started a mentoring program for young girls called Young Ladies at All Times. And I have this radio show, and I have a web series called Underneath the Hat. And the opportunities he's allowed me to birth, the ideas I've been able to birth. So even though it wasn't a physical child, all of these things have been my spiritual babies. And so I'm slowly coming to terms with what if. What if it never happened? I still have a stepdaughter, but as a woman, you always want to have one of your own. And so my husband and I are waiting to schedule an appointment with the new fertility specialist to see what he has to say, and we're willing to go through the cycle one more time, but God is allowing us to take a break from all of that in order to get some other things done. So I just wanted to share this story with the listeners and let you all in on my personal experience, because I know that there are women out there who are suffering with infertility who feel like they're by themselves. And I felt the same way. But I soon realized that there were people I was working with, seeing on a daily basis, who had actually gone through the same thing. I have a friend who went through it multiple times, had miscarriages multiple times, and now has twin girls, 5-year-old twin girls. So it's possible. And I'm just waiting on my day of being able to come on here and share with you all that my husband and I are expecting. I never know when it's going to happen, but I trust God and know that whatever he wants for us will be for us. So I really hope that I have helped someone today in sharing my story, whether it's to appreciate what you have. We can take for granted the children that we have and how they got here. And yes, they get on your nerves, and yes, they irritate you. But the fact that you were able to conceive naturally is something that other women don't have the luxury of doing. So even if you can't relate to my story, I just hope that it allows for you to be more grateful and appreciative of what you do have and how you came to get it, because it's not that way for everybody. So I hope that this show has been helpful to somebody and that somebody leaves differently from hearing it than when they came. And as we get ready to wrap up, I have some upcoming events coming up. This Sunday, tomorrow, I will have my episode of 5 Minutes of Faith with Claudia Parker. She was my guest on the mother-daughter relationship episode. She is the host of that YouTube series called 5 Minutes of Faith, and my episode will air on Sunday, tomorrow. So I'll make sure that I upload it onto my Underneath the Hat Facebook page and also my Instagram Underneath the Hat page. I also have tickets. I am a very busy woman. I'm in Chicago Mass Choir, and we're having our live recording and spring concert May 4th, which is a Saturday. Tickets are $15. If you're interested, inbox me. I still have a few tickets left. The flyer is on my Underneath the Hat Facebook page. So if you're interested, let me know. I do Zelle, PayPal, and Cash App, and I'll make sure you get your tickets. If you're up for a good read, you can get my book, Underneath the Hat. It's available on Amazon.com, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble. You can also find the link on my website, SherriSimmons.com. All of that is also posted on my Facebook page, Underneath the Hat, or also my personal page, Sherri Simmons. You can check out my YouTube channel. I still have the episode up with Miranda Chanel called Women on the Move, talking about black women as entrepreneurs. The name of that web series is Underneath the Hat on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Check out all my social media outlets at Underneath the Hat on Facebook and Instagram, and also my web series, SherriSimmons.com. Our show next week will be Mental Health with my guest, LaShanika Franklin. Again, this is Underneath the Hat, an affiliate of Vigilant Broadcasting and the Talk Radio and TV Network, LLP. I am your host, Sherri Simmons, and remember to take care of yourself underneath the hat.
Thank you for tuning in to Underneath the Hat radio show. We will see you here again next Saturday at 10 o'clock a.m. Central Time. Follow Sherri on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Underneath the Hat, and visit her website, SherriSimmons.com. Always remember to take care of yourself underneath the hat. See you next week.